Hello, everyone out there in Radio Land. This is the Free Beer and Hot Wings podcast, and if you're listening to this, you must be doing all right, I guess. I'm here with one of my closest best friends of about 18 to 19 years, Detroit's own, very proud Vince. Say hello to the people out there in the Radio Land.
Hello, everybody in Radio Land.
Yes, we are alive after all of these years. Don't know how. We won't ask why, but here we are. Talking about everything in sports, from hockey to everybody's favorite professional wrestling, and it's still real to us, damn it, after 18, 19, 20 years. But let's kick it off. We'll start off with NHL, because we're in the midst of, I will say, wrapping up the second round of the playoffs, because the only game left is the Predators and the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow night, Thursday night, and then we will be on to the conference finals for both conferences with... Vince, what do we got going on in the East right now?
Right now, we're going to have, since Washington finally beat or exercised their demons from the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, yes, yes.
They made the conference finals since 1998.
Ooh, 20 years.
20 years.
2 decades.
Years. Their captain was 13 years old.
Wow.
When they made the Stanley Cup finals.
That's impressive.
And, Casey and JoJo was the number one song on the radio.
Oh, that was it. Great years then. Great years.
Yep. They would eventually lose in 4 straight in the Stanley Cup Finals to the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, wah, wah. But so sweet for you, though.
Of course, going back-to-back for the first time.
Yeah, nobody likes Washington.
Pittsburgh did it last year, so...
Absolutely. And then on the flip coin, we've got... What is it, Tampa? Yes, right?
Tampa's going to play Washington.
Right. We got Tampa finally. Well, they made the finals, was it 20 this is awful that I don't know this. But was it 2015 when they played us?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was the last time. So it's been not so bad, 3 years. Stamkos was still there. And we took it to 6, right? We took it to 6 and we won.
Right.
So, I mean, not too bad. Kind of, I won't talk too much about my team here because, I mean, well, after winning three cups, and I mean, you can give me your opinion on this, but I feel, and a lot of retired professionals feel, that the Blackhawks were a modern day franchise. Would you agree or not agree with that?
I would agree.
Thank you very much. And
I would agree. I had my success in the late 90s, the 97s, the 98s, and 2003s.
Just to refresh some of the people out there, how many Stanley Cups does Detroit have?
I have 11.
Holy Lord!
They have the most Stanley Cups of any of the American franchises.
And that's as many Stanley Cups as some people have fingers. If you're one of those special people, I am not, but I wish I was. But and then on the flip side, the other conference there, we got one team already made the finals, and it's the team's first year in the league. How I mean, and I would love to get your feedback and opinion on this, but do you not feel, and I feel to an extent, that when a new team comes into the league and they're given that process where they can go through every single team in the league and kind of cherry pick the players that are open to it and not protected and no trade clauses, so on and so forth, I feel like that's giving that team an advantage. And I know not every team has had the success that Vegas has had, but I mean, do you, and again, feel free to give me some feedback on this, but is this not should the time for that option still be open?
Well, they've had this ever since they expanded the league. After they added the next 6 in 67. Every team was able to take at least one player, as long as they weren't unless they were under contract or first year player.
Right.
Vegas did it right. They got what they thought were the best players that they could get. I'm shocked because usually with an expansion team, as Nashville was in '98, you get you get kind of the garbage bin players, and you kind of try to build your franchise from that through trades and signings and free agencies and drafting and everything like that. But
right.
Vegas, I was really surprised that Vegas made it this far.
Especially with a goalie that had let down Pittsburgh.
And, right, and getting Andre Fleury, and apparently he's playing out of his mind.
He's only got his average right now is only like 2.3 goals against. I mean, that's huge.
Right, especially it's good for the city after the tragedy.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 1,000,000%.
Right.
But we'll expand on this. And there's a little. I'm going to give a little 2 cents here in a second. But looking at the last round 2 series that's still in play right now, that'll end tomorrow night between Winnipeg and Nashville. I haven't watched any of the games. I've heard through apps and updates and people who have watched. Your wife being a Nashville Predators fan, die hard ever since they came here to Nashville and opened up. But I know when Winnipeg came here in Game 5, they beat the Preds 6-2 when the Predators had a 2-goal lead. I checked the app before I went to bed that night, and I saw Nashville was up 2-0, and I was like, well, that's kind of it for Winnipeg. And then I checked my app the next morning, and I was blown away. I don't know where they got that fire from. And then Game 6 rolled around, and I was like, and as I'm sure you can attest to this, when you've got a team down 3-2, and you're going home, and you have that opportunity to basically step on their throat and end the series. I mean, you get it done. You find a way to get it done. Like you put everything into it, and especially with a shot at the conference finals on the line. I know everybody has an off day, but I mean, my God, like you get shut out at home, like, and I mean, I know we've all had bad games, so on and so forth, and give me some feedback here. I was blown away, and I'm actually quite disappointed and disgusted with Winnipeg on that, because I mean, now it's coming back to Nashville, and damn well Nashville's not going to let this chance slip through their hands. And I'm not a Nashville fan by any mean, but I mean, I'm kind of pulling for Nashville on this one. If you get a chance like that and you don't take take opportunity of it, then that's your ass. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
Well, Nashville had to win Game 6 or they were going to go home. They had to punch. Basically, they had to punch Winnipeg in the mouth and keep punching them in the mouth.
And did just that.
You scored as in game, I think when they lost 6-4. When they lost 6-4, they had a 3-0 lead in the first period. And they or 7-4 in that game. They completely just lost focus.
Yeah.
A team like Winnipeg can score on a whim. They even said if one of their top lines, Connor, Laine, or Wheeler get hot, the series was going to be over.
Right.
Because Nashville wasn't going to be able to stop them.
Correct, right.
And without Pekka Rinne, Nashville wouldn't be in this series, even though both Connor Hellebuyck and Pekka Rinne are both up for the Vezina Trophy this year.
I didn't know that. That's some good info right there. Thanks for that. And it's absolutely true. But I mean, did you hear anything about that game, about in Winnipeg Game 6? Like, was it just good defense by Nashville, or I mean, obviously Rinne stands on his head every night for those guys and gives them awesome goaltending, and I'm sure, like you said, when your back is against the wall and someone's got a gun to your head, you're going to fight to your last dying breath to get back, and that's clearly what they did. But what did you hear about Game 6? Like, you figured Winnipeg would score at least once, for God's sakes. I mean, what did you get?
They just Nashville outplayed Winnipeg. They took over chances. They made their chances count. They stayed pretty much out of the penalty box. So that was one thing that they were saying about the Nashville-Winnipeg series is Nashville is going to have to stay out of the penalty box because Winnipeg had one of the top power plays in the league. And
right.
They had to, discipline themselves from not doing that. Plus, Hellebuyck had a bad game. Every goalie goes through it. There's a few soft goals that he's let in that he probably would want to have back, but it's going to be a great game tomorrow at
Oh,
7
yeah.
o'clock here in Nashville. But I know it's always going to be, the game's sold out. There's going to be fans on the streets. You know,
Oh, yeah.
everybody's going to be going crazy. I think the last time Winnipeg was in the playoffs was when they were the original Jets, and they played me in the first round of the Western Conference Finals, or Western Conference, in 95.
So that was 23 years ago.
Right.
I was
They
only
moved
7. Wait, you said 95?
95.
I was 10. Wow.
Yeah.
And who won that one?
Detroit won the series.
What was the final in that games?
I think the Wings ended up winning, I want to say, 4-2, I believe.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm shot in the dark. That's what I was gonna say. But
Right, that was the year that they won 20. That's the year they won. They went 62-13-3 in the regular season.
wow, that's impressive.
Then they would end up losing 4 straight to the Devils in the conference, the Stanley Cup Finals.
I do remember that.
Even and the Devils.
I remember watching that on TV.
Right.
But you had the cream of the crop there back for your former players, right? I mean, you had
Right.
a lot of good guys then that would later go on and win you guys multiple championships, correct?
Right.
Still though, that's classic hockey. I mean, we're 23 years removed from that, but because I feel like nobody looks back on the 90s right now and like they did, before our times, like our fathers and grandfathers, talking about back when the original 6, you and I were both in that in the 20s.
Right.
The 90s are quickly becoming, you can look back at the 90s now, especially with you guys, and say, that was a really good time for hockey, even though we don't have some of the franchises that we do now. But that was before that was 3 years before Nashville got into the league. But that's
Definitely.
quickly becoming, you remember when? But quickly, since we're talking about Nashville, and I want to address this, and you don't have to comment to this or anything, but I wanted to take a second, and I won't address this ever again, so I hope everybody hears this and hears this loud. I have been, use my words very carefully here, my name has been thrown around a lot online between friends of mine and family members of mine who have basically, I'll be honest, have run me down on social media, and I don't take very kindly to that. I was not going to address it. A lot of people know I'm not a Nashville fan by any means, and I understand people are very protective of their hockey team, but I'm going to do a quick promo on this for you people. When you run me down and I'm not even there, when you can do it on social media and you can hide behind a platform, I think that's very, very cowardly. If you have something to say to me, you say it to me on the phone, you say it to me in person. That way I can defend myself. But a lot of you didn't do that, and I take very strongly to that. I have very strong feelings for that. Now, you guys have only been in the league for 20 years. The 20th year being this year that we're in right now, and have played through and are now in the playoffs of. When you guys came in the league and didn't know what you were doing, were getting your feet about you, developing yourself as a name and as a franchise and developing a fan base, you guys were running around playing Whose Yum Rocket Is in My Mouth This Week. Whatever. I'll leave that alone, but let's be honest about it, that's what you were doing. Now, I know something that eats at every Predators fan. You call me a fair weather fan. I've been to games back in the 90s, and Vince, please confirm this, that you and I were going to games to see the Blackhawks when they had nobody, when we were getting our ass run down every single time they came to Nashville, and you couldn't find a Blackhawks fan, within 50 miles of any game, am I right? We went to those games.
Yeah.
Right.
And they had Tony Montgomery, Eric Daze, and
Bell.
Doc Tabo was the goaltender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, now everybody has confirmation that I was in there in the low times, and I've been there in the good times, too. I waited through those low times to get to the good times. I never bailed on them. I never I never gave up on them. I never, like a lot of people are doing now when their favorite players leave or their star player leaves in a franchise, these people go on social media and burn their jerseys and burn their hats, and I have never done that, and I will never do that. But for people out there and friends of mine who know me personally to sit there and not indirectly look me in the eye and call me a Fairweather fan and that, you know, I should be a fan of the town I'm in and all that, I'm tired of that, and it will not happen anymore. If it happens again, you and I are obviously not friends, and if you can't look me in the eye and do that, you and I have a problem, and I will fix the problem. But I will tell you one thing right now. Vince, again, and please back me up on this, after the Hawks had started to get hot in 2010, won the first one, 2013 on the shortened season because of the lockout when we won the President's Trophy and then went on to win the finals. As Nashville fans began to notice, and obviously their management, GM, and owner did too, Nashville fans had to change their whole ticket operation and then required Blackhawks fans, you couldn't just go to one Blackhawks game. The team made you buy tickets to another team's game so that because it was turning into another home game for the Blackhawks. Vince, am I right on that?
Yeah, it also affected me too.
In what way?
Being a Red Wings fan, especially now since I'm in the East.
I understand.
Now,
yeah.
I've only played Nashville once
a year here.
Right.
Yeah, but
on the same way, I would have to buy a Wings game, the Wings ticket, and plus another game to the Preds.
I feel like that, and I feel like that's robbing fans. I feel like that's exactly what you're doing. You're robbing fans and robbing them of their money. But to sit here and call me a Fairweather fan or jumping on the bandwagon or not being a real fan, I feel like that you shouldn't accuse anybody of that. I mean, if you're envious of another team, as people are apparently envious of me and having 6 championships, obviously not 11 and not as cemented as you are in the United States, but I still feel 6 is a good number. You know, we're up towards the top of the league in that in the United States. But when you sit there and the Blackhawks fans would overpower the chants in the arenas, and I know that eats at the players. I know it eats at them so bad because it's like, you know, we go up there 3 times a year. We got to come here. We play at home, 41 games out of the season, and then 3 of those, the Hawks fans come in, and it's like 3 more on the road. I know that eats at them in their very soul, but I will say one thing, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. The problem here is that men like you and I, and real men out there, and real adults, the one thing we can do is see through bullshit. And we smell phony punks like you coming from a mile away. And that's exactly what these people are, who call out genuine fans like you and me who have been there through the low times. Enjoy the high times because we've been there for so long and we were tired scraping the bottom of the barrel. It is not fair to call someone who has spent thousands upon thousands of dollars to see their team, merchandise, tickets to go, all this other stuff that we pour our heart and souls and money into, and then these people are going to look at us. You and I go to games, people curse us out, don't know us, spit at us, spill beer on us, all this other stuff. How classless can you be? My God. That is just classless, and it's redneck, white trash pieces of garbage. And that's all it is. And if that's what you want to label yourself as, if that's what you want to be known as, then more power to you. Just keep it the hell away from me. And I will not speak for you on this, but I'm just requesting that. Keep it the hell away from me because you don't know me, and you don't know how long I've been a fan and how long I've suffered. Am I right? Am I right on that? And I'm not speaking for you. I would just like to get your 2 cents on that. If you've ever had experiences like that.
Oh, I have. I've had a lot of people, give me crap about being from Detroit, living where I'm, giving me hard time being a Red Wings fan. It's just, try to have a conversation with somebody and talking about hockey, and then I tell them who I'm a fan of, and then they look at me with, not really with disgust, but discontentment, and they have to understand that I grew up with the sport.
And you lived in Detroit for many, many years. You were born there, am I right?
Right.
So I mean, it's not fair at all to point fingers or laugh. I mean, laughing is irrelevant, but I mean,
right.
To cuss someone out, you don't know who they are, where they're from, how long they've been a fan. I mean, I feel like that's very classless.
Right.
But anyway,
I try to have a decent conversation with someone, and they get upset because I'm a fan of, the Red Wings. And yes, they were once rivals with Nashville, but
you're in the East now.
Realignment happened. I'm in the Eastern Conference now. We only see each other twice a year, so I don't think that's really considered a rivalry anymore.
No, not at all. That time has passed, and a lot of that, for those people who don't know, a lot of that came with folks like your dad who were relocated here because of their job. Correct?
Right.
And that stemmed from that, and all the Detroit, the real diehard Detroit fans having to move here for their job and their way of life to continue that and support their families. That was the only way they could go to games, is when the Red Wings would come here, and you guys were, again, laughed at, pointed fingered at, you're not a real fan, you're just jumping on the wagon of them being hot, and all that hot garbage that's not even true.
Right.
But we'll leave that alone now that I've gotten that out. It's not a problem anymore. We'll move on to NFL. We just had our draft. Excited about that. Vince, thoughts on that? Not just for the Lions, but go ahead and go for the Lions if you want, or go for the whole thing. Get us kicked off there.
Well, we can go with the number one pick that Cleveland Browns decided to go with as of now.
Hit or miss, in your opinion? Hit or miss?
Probably a miss, just because Cleveland's known for not being able to draft quarterbacks. As the, Tim Couch.
Yes.
It's pretty bad when, especially with Tim Couch coming from the University of Kentucky, not really a powerhouse.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Football.
SEC.
And his own, and you get to the point where your own fans cheer for you when you get sacked.
Oh, good times.
Bad.
Good times.
It's pretty bad. And then, I like Baker Mayfield, for what he did to Ohio State, beating the Buckeyes. As you probably all know, I hate the Buckeyes, being from Michigan, being a Wolverine.
Amen.
He won the game, and he planted the flag, the Oklahoma flag, inside the O in the middle of the field.
Hell yes.
In Ohio. But the thing that I don't really care for is he went back, he retracted what he did, and he apologized. I feel like they did it to you last year in Oklahoma. You should have every right to go to the horseshoe and plant the flag there.
Absolutely. Turnabout is fair play.
It is. I think he's, I like that he beat Ohio State. I just think it's funny how Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns decided to go ahead and draft a quarterback that beat their beloved Buckeyes, because most fans in Ohio that follow college football are Ohio State fans, regardless of what city or what state or what even small college they might have went to.
Absolutely, and that was my experience when I went to see the Browns play the Broncos a few years ago. Is everybody was, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a fan of your own college team. Absolutely, fantastic. But I mean, if you're going to do something, you've got to be ready to get it right back. You can't do one thing and then want it another way. It just doesn't work that way.
I think they should have took a different quarterback. I think they should have waited and maybe taken Sam Darnold from USC, or even taking Josh Allen from Wyoming. I think that probably would have been better pickups for them just at that time.
Are you talking about number 4? With number 4?
Right. Or they could have waited at 4 and take the quarterback instead of taking the corner from Ohio State.
Right. I think a lot of people thought Barkley wasn't going to go there. A lot of people thought Barkley was going to go there. When I say not go there, I mean not go higher than 4.
Right.
But I mean, New York needed a running back, that's for sure. But I mean, they need more than a running back there. I mean,
Right.
you need
They
a quarterback.
Right. I think they waited to the fifth or sixth round, close maybe to the seventh round. They take a quarterback from Richmond
Right.
to back up Eli
Right.
Manning at the time. But more likely, next year they'll probably draft a quarterback, probably a better pro-style quarterback to take over for Eli Manning when his time is over.
Right. And then who else did we have? Jets took a quarterback, right?
Yes, they took Sam Darnold from USC.
And how do we see that one playing out?
Well, it's really they actually released Bryce Petty this year. They let him go. Now they have, as of right now, as I know, they have Josh McCown. They have Sam Darnold that they just drafted, and then they made the trade with Minnesota to get Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, so it looks like the draft pick's going to be the one to go forward. I mean, just my opinion, but it sounds like the Darnold's going to be the one starting this year.
Right, because I think they're really gun shy about Teddy Bridgewater because of last year.
Right. And a lot of people didn't even think...
He tore his knee apart.
Right. And everybody thought he might not even come back, ever.
True.
But yeah, I mean... And then I picked at 7, which, thoughts on that?
Well, you took a linebacker, right?
Right.
Right. From Georgia?
Correct.
Well, Georgia made it to the national championship. As long as you can take at least one of the players, as long as you get a chance at a player that played in the national championship, they're pretty decent to be there. I mean, regardless of what's either Alabama or Georgia, at least they're, comparable. SEC usually comes out with pretty good players.
Right.
They're known for having tough football players.
We also took a wide receiver from Georgia, too.
Right.
Which, again, we desperately need wide receivers.
Right. I took a center, one of the better centers in the league.
You picked it 22?
In 20, yeah. Took Frank Ragnow from Arkansas, who was a top-rated center, which Detroit needed since my center decided to go off to the Jets.
Right. But you guys need an O-line to protect Stafford.
Right. Right.
So not a bad pick at all.
No.
And then what did you guys do later on in the draft after the first round?
Later in the draft, they took a safety from Louisiana Lafayette, who ended up being, which I didn't know at the time, was actually Darius Slay's cousin.
Oh, wow.
It was actually his second cousin. Big Play Slay's second cousin now with Detroit. So he was excited. He tweeted his cousin about coming to Detroit and hopefully being able to play with his cousin will be great. If he plays as hard and is anything like Darius Slay, Detroit just hit a home run.
Absolutely. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't know
impressive.
that either. I actually had to look it up. And then they actually traded up with the Patriots and took a running back.
Oh, there you go.
After 2 or 3 years, they finally, after a year they should have took a running back last year, they took Kerryon Johnson from Auburn, who was SEC Player of the Year.
Oh, wow. Nice. That was a nice pickup.
SEC Player of the Year, and some people compare him to Marshawn Lynch.
Oh, wow.
So if he's anything more like Marshawn Lynch, yet again, Detroit looks like they're going to do pretty well. Because I see them getting rid of Amir Abdullah. He can't stay healthy. He fumbled. I think it was time for them to upgrade the running back system. As of now, they didn't get any more offensive weapons. They drafted a fullback from Central Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Which this is the first time they drafted a running back since they had. Trying to think of the gentleman's name, but he played at the University of Maryland.
They took Mikael LaShore too, right? But that was. It feels like that was a while back now.
That was a while back, and he didn't last. He got in trouble with drugs.
a lot of people don't. I mean, that was I was really happy with that pick because LaShore went to the University of Illinois.
Right.
And we were at that game too, where he scored his first NFL touchdown.
We were. Yes, we were.
I'm very happy for that. I was very excited to see that because I don't get to see a lot of my players, play, and it was a very good day for that, and I'll never forget being at that game with you. And that was also that game went to overtime. I'll never forget that game because we had to.
It did. We were going to leave early. Stafford got hurt.
Yeah.
And they made a comeback, and then ended up losing in overtime to the Titans.
And that, I mean, and the crazy thing about that was that you guys were down by 7, and then we were walking out of the stadium, and then I believe you and I stopped in the almost walking down the tunnel, and then we turned around, and the quarterback had thrown a Hail Mary, and the wide receiver that was covered by the 2 safeties in the corner, and I believe it was Megatron. He threw it to him, and he didn't catch it, but it was kind of a volleyball-type play where he tipped it to one of the other wide receivers, and that wide receiver who caught it dove into the end zone there and forced overtime.
Right.
I'll never forget that. We were about to walk out, and that was just impressive to see, and you and I had our mouths open. We couldn't believe it happened. But,
yeah, that's when the Lions had Jim Schwartz as the head coach.
Oh, yeah.
But now they let Caldwell go, and now they ended up picking up Matt Patricia from New England. So.
I forgot about that. That'll be good.
So he looks like, getting somebody who's under Belichick sometimes, can be a good thing. He knows football, which is good. I give Bob Quinn a lot of credit for being able to draft what they needed instead of going out and picking up a sexy, drafting a sexy pick. Figured, we'll draft at 20 and get, try to get the best player. They figured build the offensive line, do like New England. They protect Brady. They can do the same thing and protect Stafford.
Another Michigan zone in Tom Brady.
Yep, Tom Brady. That's true. Yep.
One of the sexiest men alive, but that's another time. That's another place. That's a different podcast. But yeah, and I think too a lot of people. Speaking of the Patriots, and and you can speak to this if you've heard anything like this, but. As we all know, nothing lasts forever, and Brady's coming up. Brady, for a few weeks there, Brady had not absolutely 1,000,000% committed to playing this year, and finally, he came in and said, he's got this year, maybe another year after this, to that he wants to play, and like nothing lasts forever, and he's getting older, and also Belichick, I think, is coming up, and. They've done clearly they've done very well together, very much hated in the NFL because of how good they are, and every year they're just going to make a deep playoff run. There's no question about it, no matter who gets hurt and this, that, and the other. But, I've heard recently that with the whole Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers thing, I'm not, again, my story on this is unclear a little bit, as anyone outside of the system would be, but I've heard that Tom Brady might have been the one to suggest to Robert Kraft that they let Garoppolo go, that Jimmy was getting a little bit too good, and maybe Bill Belichick was not 1,000,000% on board with keeping him as being Tom Brady's replacement when he goes. A lot of unanswered questions in that, but I've heard and I believe that was part of the reason for letting him go to the 49ers, which I'm not. Again, there's a lot of backdoor, behind the door politics that go on that nobody knows about, unless you're inside the system. But if you're just looking at it from a Patriots fan standpoint, Garoppolo did well when Brady was serving a suspension, and then, that was that was very touchy. That was early season, maybe all the teams they played weren't 1,000,000% on their game yet. That's one thing, but he still did very well. He won 2 or 3 of those games that he started, and then now looking, to say, well, you know what, it was early, but then having let him go, and then seeing how he finished the year for San Francisco, I mean, I feel like New England made a very big mistake here. Like, this kid is obviously real, and Vince, you can speak to that, but I mean, that's just my opinion on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was a usually NFL teams and franchises wish they have a good backup just in case the unthinkable happens where your starter goes down.
Right.
Him going to San Francisco was more of a shot in the arm for San Francisco because they haven't had really a decent quarterback in a long time.
Since Steve Young.
Steve Young, yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Young, pretty much, yeah. So, they, Belichick's a smart man. He knows what he's doing. I mean, they did take a quarterback this year.
I was not aware of that.
They took the quarterback from LSU.
Oh wow! I didn't even know that.
I don't know much about him since I don't really follow SEC a whole lot.
Do you remember what round that was?
Probably one of the later rounds, I believe.
Yeah, because I didn't even hear about that. But I mean, a quarterback is a quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I think they did take the quarterback from LSU.
So I mean, at least there's somebody in the wings just in case of emergency.
Possibly, or it depends on how well they do. Because plus with also, you got NFL training camp coming up.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to make the team.
Right. Yeah. So
the first couple spring or preseason games is mostly to see what you have, what you drafted. Usually, you're not really going to let one of your draft picks go, but maybe somebody who's a backup that more likely would be on the practice squad. They could always pick up somebody.
Bill Belichick has a very high measuring stick, so I mean,
right,
and rightfully so. He's turned that team into the best well-oiled machine that the NFL has seen in quite some time. But
right.
Belichick, I mean, you gotta know. He has to know that you're in it for the long haul and that you can do it. Like, you've got to be able to go at a moment's notice. But
right, definitely.
We'll see. Like you said, we'll see what happens after spring training with that, especially with the later pick quarterback. But yeah, I mean, on my side of the ball here, I mean, you guys are looking like, you guys meaning Detroit, you guys look like you're going to make another deep run for the NFC North here with, I mean, Minnesota. We all saw what happened to Minnesota last year. Again, I love Kirk Cousins, so I am absolutely floored that I get to play him twice a year. Win, lose, or draw, I mean, I'm jacked for that. I don't know your feelings on that guy, but I've been on the Cousins train ever since he got drafted. Clearly, it wasn't going his way in Washington, and granted, he wasn't awesome, but I mean, franchise tag after franchise tag, and as a player, I mean, I feel like that could have also hurt his confidence a little bit. And, maybe that had something to do with the results. And granted that was becoming, the NFC East was becoming a kind of like a dynamo with, the Cowboys getting Dak and Zeke, and then the Eagles doing as well as they did last year with Nick Foles. Another guy I'm huge on. I've always loved Nick Foles. Kind of lucking his way into that situation, like, after Kansas City and all that. But I've always been a Nick Foles fan, loved him too ever since he was drafted. Very, very happy for him and his wife and his family after that huge Super Bowl win, stepping in for Carson Wentz. We're going to see what happens with Carson Wentz. Today he tweeted and commented on various platforms that, he feels like he's going to be ready to go, if not better than he was before. Again, actions speak louder than words here. But, Nick Foles is in the wings, and he stepped in and performed when the time was right and brought the team a championship. So, you got all that going on. But, I mean, we'll bring it back to the NFC North here. I mean, Vince, from what you know about what happened in the draft to what they may have lost already, between you, I mean, Green Bay is always been that big brother that the three other teams, meaning Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, was the big brother we couldn't get ahead of. The big brother that would always slap us down and beat us up and leave us in the dark for dead. Now Rodgers is coming up on the end of his career. They lost Jordy Nelson. Randall Cobb is really one of the only ones they have left. They got Jimmy Graham. They're really excited about him. You know, a lot of people in Green Bay and a lot of sportcasters have said that this is the best tight end that Rodgers has ever had to play with. But, I mean, with Randall Cobb and Jimmy Graham, these guys aren't young. They weren't drafted last year or this year, you know. So, I mean, Green Bay's trying to retool here and reload and, you know, building a franchise from nothing, especially with, again, as I stated, Rodgers getting older. And with him being injured this last year and falling down the stairs and kind of, you know, once that first game that Rodgers came back and they lost and then they were knocked out of playoff contention, they kind of sold the farm and lost out on purpose so they could try to work their way up the draft ladder to get an earlier pick. But from what we have right now, Vince, and what you know, and, you know, please enlighten me as to what has happened with Minnesota in the draft and players they may have acquired or lost. But, I mean, it's coming down, and I know, I mean, again, I hope the Bears can go 10-6, 9-7. I mean, again, I'm a realist. You know, that's best case scenario in my view. I'm not wishing, but not hoping. But as far as you guys, I mean, what do you see happening in the NFC North as far as the Lions and the Vikings?
Well, they projected me 9-7.
And what did they project Minnesota?
Probably at least 10 wins.
So 10-6, 11-5.
Right.
So, I mean, there's some wiggle room there. If you could upset them in one of those games, maybe in Minnesota, and then win at home in Detroit, you could sneak it out, and they put them in a position. I mean, if, you know, best case scenario, if you could beat them twice, and then I could help, you know, give you a little kick in the butt as far as winning the division and getting one of those top 4 draft spots, you know, you could put them in a position of trying to make a wild card.
Right.
Which, I mean, would be like, I mean, that's best case scenario, I guess. I mean, you see Minnesota go so many times, even if it's in a wild card spot. Green Bay is always in there, and then some of those years that Green Bay was in there, none of us were, the other 3 of us weren't even in a wild card spot. So, you know, the last time I was in the playoffs, the last time I remember being in the playoffs is the 2006 when we went and played Peyton Manning's Colts in the Super Bowl in Miami and lost horribly. And that, we won't talk about who was quarterback at that time, but, you know, that was back in, you know, Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher, you know, Devin Hester, and that was a lot. I mean, some people may know this, some people may not, but that was the first ever kickoff return touchdown in Super Bowl history. You know, and I'm very proud of that. And, you know, I'm also very proud of the fact that a few weeks ago, Devin Hester and Matt Forte signed one-day contracts with the Bears so they could retire a Bear. And I was very, very pleased with that. Very happy with that because, I mean, Hester tried to make the move to wide receiver, but never could really do it. He was better at kickoff returns, which with his speed was really kind of a letdown. You know, you figure a guy that fast before Julio Jones became, you know, Broadway lights, big marquee Julio Jones, you know, like 200 yards a game. You know, Hester was that guy, and you would figure Hester would have been that, but it's just in the catching and all. I mean, I just don't know where the connection failed for him, but you know, it didn't come together as Lovie Smith would have hoped. But Forte was the backbone, especially in the Jay Cutler years, which again I wanted to put my head in an oven with that guy, but you know. I was very happy to see that Matt Forte retired a Bear, as opposed to going out in New York, you know, with the Jets. Just everybody overlooking them, but rightfully so, because when you're in a division with a Tom Brady, I mean, everybody's going to look past you anyway, which is really unfortunate. But that's just the way that American professional sports are now, especially even the NFL. You know. When you've got a Tom Brady and a Bill Belichick, you know, people are going to look past you and be like, well, the other 3 teams in that division, well, they're going to take 2 losses a year already, you know that. But, I mean, you know, Miami is slowly getting better, trying to, you know, Ryan Tannehill, all that. New York's I feel New York's starting from scratch. just trying to find their legs somewhere in an NFL that's getting faster and younger and better. And then Buffalo, Tyrod left and Sammy Watkins left, so I mean, they're almost starting from scratch. So I mean, maybe New England will just run with it for another 15 years. I mean, I really don't know what to say about that, but
right. Well, what I've heard about Miami is if Tannehill doesn't do it this year, he could be on his way out.
Rightfully so.
They could easily look towards finding another quarterback.
Rightfully so, and then also, I mean, I have kind of my foot in that camp a little bit with Adam Gase being my former offensive coordinator for many, many years. So I don't want anything bad to happen. I don't wish anything ill on him for leaving. If I had that opportunity, I probably sure as hell would have taken it too to be a head coach. But Adam Gase is a very, very good mind in the professional community, and I hope that maybe one day, once Brady's gone, he can take Miami. I mean, granted, that city may never find another Dan Marino, but I hope Adam Gase does well in his career. And I mean, it may take a while till Brady and Belichick are gone, but I don't wish anything bad on Adam Gase, and I really hope that he can bring it together and become a very big staple in Florida's professional sport community. But I've also heard, and I would like to get your opinion on this as well, that Belichick, to a lot of people in New England and across the country, it appears that Bill Belichick is kind of ripping out the wiring in the system here, as far as with quarterbacks and this, that, and the other, and letting some of their wide receivers go. Again, injury-ridden wide receivers, but still wide receivers that have helped them do very well. But it seems, and to me too, upon hearing this idea and then examining it at my own leisure, it seems that when Bill knows he's leaving, it seems that he's, again, to use maybe a bad analogy, but on the way out, and maybe if he and Robert Kraft, and it's even been said that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's relationship is becoming strained to an extent, and it seems that Bill's kind of ripping out the wiring and destroying the system on the way out so that New England will be absolutely almost dead and gone when he leaves. And, I mean, I hope that's not true, but, have you heard anything like that? Or, I mean, to your eye, which is a lot better than mine in football, you've been alive longer than I have and know quite a lot more, but, I mean, please, give me your opinion on that.
Well, I mean, Belichick did well for New England, winning all those championships for New England. I mean, I couldn't see him self-destructing his own creation.
Right.
On the way out. I mean, yes, when he decides to leave and Tom Brady hangs it up, they're going to be terrible for a while.
Right, naturally.
They're not going to be the same New England Patriots.
Right.
As we all know, as sports fans, we all go, it's basically an ebb and flow. It's a roller coaster.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you start out low and you end up higher. You're already at the top, but eventually the other shoe's going to drop, and the roller coaster's going to, get to the apex of the hill, and eventually it's going to have to go down.
Absolutely. And when you have arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, or just the greatest of all time, you don't get that back. Like, I mean, if they do, then my God, people. Robert Kraft has got, he's got the horn to God on that, because you don't hit that twice in a lifetime. Like, I mean, right. You may get a good one, but you're not going to get another quarterback right out of the gate that's going to take you to 5 more championships. The Bulls didn't find another Michael Jordan after he went 6-0 in the finals in the NBA. I mean, let's be real here.
Definitely.
But I mean, I think I agree with you on this. I mean, I don't want to think that he would do something like that, especially after making this huge, this small thing and making it his baby and then blowing it up to something gargantuan and huge, and then just on the way out, just kind of taking the knife and popping the bubble and just saying, well, you're on your own now. But I mean, right. Time will tell and we will see. But we'll get away from the NFL. We got about 10 minutes left here. we'll move on to we'll do baseball here. It's really early in the season here. Cubs have actually doing well. It went huge the last two nights over Miami, winning 14-2, and then I think 13-2 today, just giving them a real hammering. But I'm pleased with it because we didn't do so well against St. Louis in our series against them. They kind of ran over us, which is fine because St. Louis is first in the Central here in the National League. But Cubs are 3 games over 500 right now, 3 or 4. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4 after today. I think it's 4 after today, and we're only a game and a half back of the lead there. Which again, it's very early. A lot of things can happen. A lot of players can still get hurt, so on and so forth. But I'm happy with where we are right now. Still got a long way to go. We had that scare with our third baseman getting hit in the head with a pitch and being out, for 3 or 4 games. But he's all right now, and we're doing better. We're still finding ourselves. Not the same World Series team that we beat Cleveland with, but we finally got it. Took us over a century, but we finally got it done. In an outstanding series with the Indians, and hopefully Cleveland can right their ship and make another run at it soon. I don't wish anything bad on the Indians. They had their movie franchise, which you kind of locked out with that. When you've got Rick Wild Thing Vaughn, you don't get another Rick Wild Thing Vaughn. That's all I'm saying. You got to start coming. And what was his name? Willie Mays Hayes. You get a Willie Mays Hayes. You don't replace that guy really either. Quick either. Pedro Serrano, and what was his name? Tanaka. I forgot his first name. But and I joke, but it's looking good early. Vince, what do we got going on in the American League?
Well, the Yankees and Red Sox are playing, doing a series as of now, and
I saw that. People are really jacked about that.
The Yankees ended up winning last night. Looks like Yankees and the Red Sox are pretty much the top 2 teams in the American League as of now. A lot of really bad teams in baseball. I don't know if you've been seeing it or not, but the Baltimore Orioles have been hit with really bad injuries lately, and they've only won, as of now, as far as I know. My math could be wrong, or I haven't checked the standings today, but they've only won 8 games.
Holy God.
They lost 15-1 last night to the Royals, who was just as bad.
Mother of God. That's... wow.
So... There's a bunch of teams with at least double-digit losses.
Holy hell!
Yeah,
that's rough.
There is a bunch of teams. Cincinnati has been playing great as well. You can tell I've watched games where they played. The Braves have played. Braves have either played Cincinnati or Cincinnati would be on TV, and half the stadium's empty because no one wants to go to games.
Right.
So, people in Cincinnati don't have anything much to do. They can always check out the Reds just to kill an afternoon or a night.
Right. But that works out well for me.
in my division, in the American AL East or AL Central, I'm the Tigers as of now. They played today against the Rangers, so I'm not sure if they won or not. But they're as of last night, they were, I believe, either 14-20 or 15-20. So I'm at least 5 games back, or 5 games below 500. But I'm only 2.5 games out of first.
Right, I saw that. I did see that, which is, again, like I said, it's really early, so there's still plenty of time for you guys to find yourself, get it together, and make a run for it. So, you're in no danger right now.
But as far as the teams as Cincinnati and San Diego and Baltimore, their season's already over because it's hard to come back from an 8-25 or 8-20 lost season and make any kind of ground up.
Right. You'd have to really, you'd have to go on a run. Yeah, you'd really have to run, go on a 15-game, 20-game winning streak.
What team would really surprise me, the team as of now, is the Braves.
Oh, yeah, first place.
NL Central. They're 19-15. They lost, or they won last night against Tampa Bay.
Right.
But they just brought up their number one prospect, Ronald Acuna Jr., who hit a home run last night.
Nice.
Throwing the ball. They've been hit with injuries. They've lost Nancy Swanson for a couple games, and they ended up signing Jose Bautista.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Former Toronto Blue Jays outfielder who did pretty well all those years in Toronto. They called him up to play to help out, alleviate some of the pain. Even the Tigers have been hit with injuries. I've watched Detroit lost Miguel Cabrera for about 10 games with a shoulder strain.
Right.
They lost two starting pitchers already, Daniel Norris and Jordan Zimmerman, to injuries. At least a 10 to 15 day disabled list for at least Zimmerman. Daniel Norris had groin surgery. He's out at least 60. At least he's on the 60-day DL. They lost one of the relievers for plantar fasciitis. I mean, he didn't tear anything. He just hurt his foot. So Tigers have been hurt a little bit. They've had to call up some people from Toledo, which is kind of funny. The Mudhens are actually leading the International League as of now.
Oh, very nice.
Being 19 as of now, they're 19-11 as of now, which is
very
good.
Nice.
Good, future baby Tigers on the way up to kind of help vote out. So
there you go.
Yeah. So if anybody in Detroit gets tired of watching the Tigers, they could go get on the highway and go back down to Toledo and actually be a winning baseball team.
Right. But again, let's be fair to the Tigers that it's still very early, and like you said, they're just a few games out of first, so it's way more than enough time for them to make a run for it.
Of course. You make it close, you hit your stride, you have a chance. So.
And even then, even if they don't win the division, they're still the wild card. So,
right.
Still time.
Better than a lot of people said. I've heard people say in the beginning that the Tigers were going to lose 99 games. I mean, it's still possible, but
I doubt that.
Now they're putting all the spectators wrong.
Right, and I seriously doubt that. They're not. No, I don't see that. Anything's possible, but I don't see that happening.
Getting Ron Gardenhire out of retirement, who won at least three or four, division titles with the Minnesota Twins. He's not one to slack off. If a player's not playing well enough, he's willing to let him know how he feels. He even said, we may lose, but we're going to be competitive.
Damn right. And that's the kind of attitude you want.
They're not just going to roll over to the Yankees or whoever they're playing. They're going to play their hearts out the best they can.
Amen to that. That's the kind of attitude you want. But that's really good. I'm really happy for you guys, but we're almost out of time here. We're going to wrap it up here. Our first pilot podcast. We're going to get it out there. I got to edit it down.
Before we go, I just wanted to give a shout out to I think it was Jay Paxton last night. He pitched the first. He was actually the first Canadian pitcher to throw a no-hitter.
Oh, fantastic! I remember that.
Against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, wow. That is special.
Blue Jays actually get no-hit by one of their own countrymen from British Columbia.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thanks for that, though, for letting us know about that. That's incredible. That's I mean, a no-hitter is a special thing by itself, but that's pretty darn amazing.
Especially being the first Canadian born baseball player to pitch against another Canadian team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's incredible.
Yep.
But, yeah, well, we're going to wrap it up here. I got some editing to do, and then we're going to throw this thing out for the world to hear because everybody wants to hear our voices every week, maybe every few days, now and again. Probably let a week go by and see where we are and everything in sports. Probably a lot of stuff in the NFL still to come. Baseball's always going on, as we know, and, hockey playoffs will still be going for another 6 months. So, we'll get it done here. We want to thank Vince and his wonderful, vast knowledge of everything sports because, like I said, he's wise beyond his years. He's older than I am and knows a ton more than I do. So you can find Vince online, Vince Belika on Facebook, as well as the Chicago kid, and a kid that will never grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. But thank you, Vince, for joining us. Hopefully you'll come back whenever you have time to join us again. Thank you so much for talking with us and dropping some knowledge on us. Thank you very much for coming in with us. Any parting words you got for us there, man?
No, just just hit them where they're not.
Exactly. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, everybody out there. Any topics, anything you guys want us to talk about, we definitely will. It works better when it's not just me. So definitely going to try to get Vince to go with us every episode if he's got time. If not, when he can and has time. But thank you, Vince, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Like and subscribe again, like I said. Anything you guys want us to talk about, any sport, even we'll get to professional wrestling here now and again. I could do a whole podcast on that by itself and where the company's going. But we'll get to that next time. Hopefully we'll see you before next week. If not, we'll talk to you next week, early next week. Thank you again, Vince, wrapping it up. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Like and subscribe, and we will be back soon. Take care, everybody out there in Radio Land. Be nice. Be good to each other. Love each other. Stay blessed. Don't text and drive. Keep your eyes on the road. Thank you, and good night.